road, and if that road costs $1 million and it's supposed to last for 10 years, theoretically you should be setting aside, what, $100,000 every year, so that in 10 years when it's time to repave the road because it's all full of holes, you have the money and you can repave it. Well, again, prior administration was not really doing that because they wanted to take that money to be able to keep spending it and so that not have to deal with reality. So our reserves in the city and that department are basically zero. And then the general reserves, which is the kind of money that you have, that you set aside for in case, let's say, a hurricane hits here tomorrow, okay, and it tears up a bunch of stuff, and we have to pay a lot of extra overtime and cleanup and a lot of different things to make the city function again. That money has dwindled down, has been reduced to around $4 million. That is dangerously low. Okay, they recommend that at a minimum, you should have about 2 months of your budget in reserves, which for us would be around $7.5 million to $8 million. Well, we have 4. So you can see what's going on. Because in the past, no one wanted to come out and say that be honest about the finances and say, look, we have issues. We can't keep spending like this. We have to prioritize and become more efficient. Because no one wanted to do that, what they did was they kept taking the money from the water plant and taking the money from the road reserves and dipping into the reserves in order to make the budget work. Well, so to answer your question, you say, what is the biggest problem? That is our biggest problem, because that is very, very scary, because if a hurricane hit tomorrow, we could be in a financial disaster because we don't have the money saved up to deal with it. But right now, I can assure you that me, this mayor, and this council that is sitting up there is committed to finally doing the right thing, to stand up and say, folks, here is the truth. Come look at the books. Here is what we have. We cannot take all the money out of the water plant. We have to start putting some money there for an emergency, because any day now something will break there, and we have to have that money. And what I'm telling you is that this mayor, George Vallejo, and this council that is sitting up there with me, we are committed to finally standing up and doing the right thing and putting the city on a sound financial footing.
I mean, increase taxes or?
Well, you know, we listened from the campaign trail. One message that came out loud and clear from the citizens, and I spoke to many, many, many people, knocked at their doors and spoke to them. They say they can't afford any more taxes and they cannot afford any more water bill increases. So we, right now, at least in my vote as the mayor, am committed to not make life more difficult for the citizens by raising their taxes anymore. I do not want to raise their taxes. I do not want to raise their water bills. I will not be voting for any increases in taxes, and I will not vote to increase their water bills right now.
But you need the money. Well,
here's the scary part. Even if you took your property taxes in our city and took them to the very limit, to the limit that's the mandated in the Constitution, we would only bring another $1.5 million into the city. Now remember, I told you we were $7.5 million short. So even if we take people's taxes to the highest that we can take them, we would only make another $1.5 million. So you can see that raising the taxes is not that's not the savior. The savior is learning how to deliver our services efficiently and effectively, and learning how to live on a slightly reduced budget. But it's no different than what every single person is having to do out in their home that they've been doing for 3 years. Mm-hmm. We're finally getting around to doing it in the city. Everybody's been cutting back for 4 years now. People have been tightening their belts.
Mm-hmm,
you know, mm-hmm. It's only fair that the city do it at this time.
So what's the solution at this point? Well, I heard a lot of scary words like bankruptcy, financial disaster, and so on. So what is the solution now?
Well, first of all, the most important thing is that we stop talking about scare tactics and that we talk about the truth. And that's the most important thing. And I invite the citizens to come to our budget workshops and listen and look at the budget. It's online. It's on the website. citynmb.com. Right on the homepage, there's a link to the budget. They can open up and look at the entire budget. They can see what we spend for everything. I invite the citizens to come and become involved in the process, okay? Because that will help. But how do we fix it? Well, the way we fix it is by being honest about the situation, not lying about it anymore and saying, look, this is what's going on. We cannot keep stealing money from the water plant and taking money from here to make this happen. We have to live within our budget that is sustainable every year. So that's number one. But the other important topic is that I spoke about on the campaign trail. I told everybody that I was going to be the pro-business mayor. My goal is to help make this city much more business friendly so that we attract business, because with businesses, people get jobs, the city gets tax revenue, property values increase, the city looks better. Everything is good. And to that end, what I have been working on is talking to city staff, city management about doing things that make it easier for people to not only open their businesses here, but if they have a business here, to expand, okay, to come and bring new developments into the city. All of these things bring not only jobs, but they bring more money in for taxes where we can afford to spend and do more things. But that's the other one. And then the third item that we need to tackle right now is we have to address the pension situation in the city, okay? This is a very emotional topic, okay, and I understand that. But this is something that cities and the states are going through all over the country, okay? Somebody has to stand up and say, look, again, speak the truth about this, because I'm gonna give you something that probably most of the listeners out there and most everybody in the city is not aware of, which is the city right now has approximately a $70 million debt on the pensions. That is just on the pensions. That is not counting the money we owe on the water plant. That's not counting the bonds that the voters voted on to fix up the streets. That is not counting any of that stuff. The taxpayers voted throughout the years to take on debt, right? The scary part about this pension debt is that no one ever asked the voters if they wanted to get in debt, because this is one of those things that kind of lives off the budget. It's in the footnotes in a 500-page document. It's on page 462, and very few people dig it up, and they don't really want to talk about it because nobody wants to bring it up. Well, I am the mayor that is I promised the people that I was going to bring transparency. I promised that I was going to bring the truth and openness to our books. Well, here it is. Right now, the people need to understand that the city is in debt for $70 million. On top of all the other debts that they have, the city is in debt $70 million to the pensions for workers who have already worked. This is not counting money going tomorrow or the next day or future workers. This is work that's already been done. And the real big problem with that is that the interest alone on that debt costs us about $5 million, okay, annually. So the proposed cuts to come back that was discussed with the police department budget proposal was that they had to trim just under $4 million from the budget. So in other words, if we did not have this giant pension problem, okay, which has been brewing for years and years and years, if we didn't have this problem, we wouldn't be having this discussion about having to cut the police, because we'd have $1 million extra on top of what we have. You see what see what I'm getting at? Now, the biggest problem is that this pension debt did not pop up yesterday, okay? It's been there. It's been growing for years and years and years, okay? It was there when our previous mayor was there. It was there for the past many administrations. It's time that we now talk about it openly, talk about it honestly, and figure out how we're going to pay that money back, because that interest payment is killing our budget. It is killing our budget, and the citizens today deserve services. When you pay your taxes and I pay my taxes and our neighbors pay their taxes, we expect to get services. We expect to get parks. We expect to have police on the streets, right? Well, it's hard to pay for these guys today when the city is forced to pay off debts for work that was done last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. And that's one of those big issues that we are currently discussing. And again, if people want to know more about it, tomorrow night we have our city council meeting. At 5 o'clock, we're having our council workshop, which is discussing, amongst other things, one of the things being discussed is reforming the city's pension system so that we can not only make good on the promises that we made to previous workers, but that we can create a system that will make sure that the money is there for future workers and people who are working now so that they do get their money in 10, 15, 20 years when they retire. So, that was the third big ticket item, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, finally, you see, by the measure you're going to take, it's like, first of all, bring new business in the city.
Yes.
And from there, you're going to get some taxes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have several. Since I got into office, I've already met with several businesses. A lot of the businesses have come to see me to tell me their problems so that I can know exactly how to talk to the manager and staff and give them ideas of what things is, what is it that's hurting business out there and how can we do better. So we're already working on that. We're reducing fees to businesses. We're amending and updating our code to allow a lot of different uses for other businesses to be able to come in. We're reducing the paperwork. We're doing a lot of things that are happening right now as we speak. And all of this, but remember, we just got in 60 days, whatever, 60-something days ago. You can't, this is a big battleship. I can't turn it around overnight. But boy, oh boy, I sure am working nonstop on a lot of these different areas to make sure that we get the right things happening so that if this year is a tough year budget-wise, next year maybe we'll be in better shape, and the year after we'll start to look better and get our city growing again in a positive direction.
So can you say about in 3 years now we'll be okay?
Well,
more or less.
I
sure
hope so.
Budget.
Listen, I sure hope so. We a lot of the things that we're working on right now, liken it to when your mom gave you medicine when you were sick, right? You were a kid. You didn't like the taste of the medicine. It didn't taste good, but you had to take it because you took that medicine, and then a few days later you started to feel better. I believe that this is what's happening in the city. We can either pretend and keep pretending that nothing's wrong, and then we're one hurricane away from a disaster, or we can sit back and be honest with ourselves like adults, okay? Deal with these issues like adults. Let's swallow our medicine. It might be tough this year, but guess what? Next year, things will be better. And by 2 years from now, some of the people that are coming forth because they see the new attitude in the city, so they're coming to say, we're going to build a new building. We're going to bring my business here. Those things don't happen in 60 days. But by 6 months from now, people could be starting new construction projects. And then by a year and a half from now, those projects are finished. That's new jobs. That's new tax base. That's what we need to help us start moving our city forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome back anytime if you have anything to tell my people.
Alex, listen, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure. I hope to come back a lot more often. I'm sorry I haven't been back before, but I've been in the books hard with our budget and with trying to look at and make recommendations on how we can fix these issues. So, again, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.